Hey fellow gardeners, Dawn here from Seasonal Designs. Today's project is something I'm kind of excited about. Today we are going to be planting up a terrarium or a Wardian case. Are you guys ready to learn more? Let's get started. So you might be asking, what is a Wardian case? And a Wardian case is, I think, the way that really terrariums came to be. Back in the early days when they wanted to transport plants that were very tender, they transferred them in something called a Wardian case, and it was just made out of wood and it had glass in it, and it's how they transported tender plants or exotic plants from like one country to another or from one part of the country to another. And it kind of evolved into what I found is there are some makers of some beautiful Wardian cases or terrariums. This one that I have, if you know what my greenhouse looks like outside, looks very much like it, and it's why I chose this one. I chose it not only for its look, but because of just how well it was built and really how beautiful it is. But you don't have to have one of these to follow along and do something like that, because you can use any glass container that has any sort of lid. Today we're going to be working on a closed terrarium, so it's something that is fully enclosed in glass. So something like this glass jar would work just as well, even like a large canning jar. It's going to be a little bit harder to move your hand in and out with the plants in something like this, but it definitely can be done, and I think doing it in something like this would be just as cool. So this particular terrarium or Wardian case I found on Amazon, and I'm going to put the link in the description of my video so that if you're interested in purchasing one of these or looking at the other styles and types of terrariums that this company offers, you can do that as well. But I really like this one because it really looks like the greenhouse I have outside in the backyard. And the other thing I liked about this maker is that I really feel like this is high quality. It's very heavy, it's not flimsy. It is soldered with the glass in it, and it's going to be really easy to plant up because the whole lid comes off completely, so that this is really easy to plant up. This also comes with a heavy-duty plastic liner in it, so that no water, moisture, dirt, or anything is going to leak out of this and ruin anything that this is sitting on. The other cool thing about this is that in order to allow airflow, you don't necessarily have to take this whole case on and off. You can simply open up this cute little lid here, and there's a little bar that'll just sit open, and that'll allow some airflow to get into your terrarium. So I just thought this design was so beautiful and so well made that this is the one that I'm going to recommend. So let's talk about the materials that you need for your terrarium. First, you're going to need a base layer, and that can be stones, or what I'm using here is something called leca. And I use this in the base of my growing stand out in the greenhouse, which I will pop up a picture of. And what it does is it retains a little bit of moisture within the cell of this while letting most of the water kind of filter through to the bottom, because you don't want your plants sitting in water in this terrarium. And the interesting thing about terrariums, especially a closed one, is it kind of recycles the water. So you're going to mist it and you're going to give it a little drink to get started. But then after that, you're going to keep a close eye on it, because the one thing you do not want to do is you do not want to overwater your terrarium. The next thing you're going to need is your planting material. And I ordered this on Etsy, and it is a special mix that is perfect to use for terrariums. And what this has in it is 2 different types of moss, sphagnum moss, and fine charcoal, orchid bark, and tree fern fiber. And this is a wonderful substrate to use because it will drain very well in your terrarium. Now you can also make this yourself, and I also did put together a small batch of this myself, and I used a tropical potting mix and I added to that perlite and orchid bark and just kind of mixed it up. So I'm probably going to use a combination of the two of these in my terrarium. Obviously, the other thing you're going to need are plants. Two things to think about when it comes to plants in a terrarium is you want them to be small and or maintain as small a size as possible. So things like this really pretty lemon button fern will work well in there. Things like this Photonia or a nerve plant, and even though this is pretty big, I am going to break this apart into a couple of different plants that I can use. And then some smaller trailing plants that also like humidity. Those are great for terrariums. The other thing you might want to put in is live moss, and I ordered this from a seller on Etsy. I will also link that in my description. But there are a couple of different types of live moss that do also really well in terrariums. The other thing you might want to use are just maybe some cool sticks. This is like a piece of busted grapevine that I glued some faux moss on, as well as maybe some decorative type stones that you might have. So we're going to play with all of this and get started creating this baby. Let me quickly show you some of the moss that I bought. She marks them really well. This is spoon moss. And I'm going to hold that up. Hopefully you can see that. I also have some frog moss, which looks so cool. Look at how neat that is. All of this is live. She also sent me this really cool woolly boulder moss, which almost looks like little moss pads. Hopefully you can see that. And then the last one that I have is mouse tail moss. And it's like just kind of a curly little moss. All right, I'm going to zoom you in on what we're working on. So you may not be able to see me, but that's not important. What you want to see is what we're working on here. So the first thing I'm going to do, and if you don't have one of these, I love this scoop. I use this scoop for planting a lot of different things. It's perfect for soil. It's a nice small size. I will also link this on the description of this. This is also in my Amazon store. Love these things. But you're just going to want to fill up the base of this terrarium here with just one layer of this leca. So really, just like that. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to put some of our planting mix in here. Again, this scoop is like the best. So this is going to be the layer that I am going to plant in. And you can, let me just give you kind of a close-up of all of the different things in here. They say that a charcoal mix is really good because it helps with impurities. So I thought I would try this mix as my planting mix here. And I'm just going to put this in a nice even layer across my leca. Now, the thing about this is that it is pretty coarse, right? It's not going to most likely fall through my leca like a plain potting mix would. So you kind of want to have these layers in here. All right, I'm also going to use a little bit of the mix that I created, which has a little bit of the orchid potting mix in here. And I'm just going to sprinkle a layer of this on as well. And again, just kind of evening this out. Also going to do the same here in this little glass terrarium that I'm also going to build at the same time. All right, so the next thing we're going to want to do is divide this plant up, because this is too big to fit in any of these terrariums. So I am going to simply pull this apart, and we're going to gently tease this apart into as many plants as we can get. And I'm just going to carefully kind of divide this guy up and see where he kind of comes apart. Let's see, might be easier if I turn him towards me here a little bit. Has a lot of root structure here. So I would like to get this down to maybe 1, and maybe this one. Kind of like this one. This bloomed at one time, and I kind of like the texture that that provides. So maybe something like this would be the right size for my terrarium. And then maybe I'll do another one of these really small ones in this other one in my glass jar. And then the rest of these, I'll just pop back into my container and actually just kind of grow this on as a little house plant. I'm also going to do the same to this vining plant because I would like a little piece of this in my terrariums as well. So there, so maybe something like that would be a good size. I could even probably make this a little smaller if I wanted to. That looks good. All right, then we're gonna start kind of placing things in here. And the first thing I wanna put is I wanna put my little structured piece of dried grapevine in here, just because I wanna add a little bit of a dried sort of structural element in here. And I'm simply gonna tuck it into my soil here and hope that once I plant around it that that's gonna kind of hold it up. Let me see if I can, there we go. I want to kind of get it all the way down to the base here so that the leca and everything can hold this in place. And then I think I'm gonna add my fern in here. So, I mean, if you can get your plants this size, that's ideal because that is like the perfect size for these little terrarium plants. Gonna again just kind of get rid of some of this soil. We don't need all of this. He is nice and moist. I'm going to kind of stick him down here as far as I can. And once I get everything planted, I'll be adding a little bit more soil so that I come up to the lip in this terrarium here. So even though his roots are sticking out a little bit, they won't be for the long haul. I'm gonna stick this guy in here. I'm just kind of am placing him to see where I might like his little roots to be. And then you're just going to kind of, you wanna put the roots in and kind of tease them out a little bit so that they're growing, have a chance to kind of grow. And then firm it up. Just like that. And again, we are going to come back and add a little bit more soil to this. All right, so that, I think that is looking really cute already, but I just thought it would be kind of neat to get a little bit of the vining piece in here. Like if I could get this in here and get it to grow up, this faux piece in here, I thought that would be kind of cool. I might come back and place that. So what I'm going to do now is add a little bit more of my mix here, my potting mix. And I'm going to use some of the mix that I planted up, or I mixed up. Whoop. We're just going to add a little bit more so we can kind of firm this in. When you're planting your moss, it does say to make sure that it is very moist. And right now, this is the frog moss that I think I'm going to put in there, which I think is so cool. It has such cool kind of texture. You simply can just break this off into small chunks, or you could cut it with the scissors. I don't even feel like you need to cut it. But I have some smaller pieces here in my hand. I am going to make sure that the bottom of this is just really moist, and I'm going to use my sprayer. And then I'm also going to make sure that where I'm planting it is moist, because it is going to need that moisture to grow. All right, so I'm simply going to take this moss and I'm just going to kind of place it where I think I want it to be. Isn't that kind of cool? And I'm going to put a little bit over here on this side around my fern, kind of just like that. Now I'm going to use some of this boulder moss as well, this little buttons almost. And just kind of, I think I'm just going to do like, I don't know, a little path of it through here. You really almost have to play with this stuff and put it in and see if you like it, and then, you know, move on to the next piece. There are some really creative terrarium makers out there. And again, I'm spraying it before I'm putting it in there so that it is nice and moist. And it says you want to make sure it has firm contact with what it's going to be growing on, which is my soil here. Now, I think it would be cool to add some different, maybe stones in here. I don't know if I want the dark you kind of lose completely. Don't know if you can just kind of turn this around. Maybe a lighter stone you can maybe see a little bit better than the black ones, I think. Just for a little texture. And I'm going to cover, I think, all of the surface up with the rest of this moss. I also put in a little bit of this vine right here, which I think will be kind of nice if it'll kind of grow, and maybe I can have it grow up. But I think I'm going to stick to these two mosses because I just love the texture of these. And I'm just going to kind of keep filling in the rest of the soil here around my plants with some of this really cool looking moss. Again, I'm spraying it, making sure the soil is moist where this is going to go in. Just kind of filling in. The very last thing I'm going to do here is just give this all a little drink of water, and I'm going to do it with my spray bottle because everything in here has been pre-moistened before I planted. All the moss, the plants already had a drink, and so now I'm just going to just give everything a little misting, just like that. That's about all you're going to need to do. All right, last but not least, we are just going to gently place our lid on this. You may have to gently do this because I see that my little fern here is gonna hang outside. So you're just gonna wanna tuck them in just like that. All right, you guys, I forgot. I ordered this cute little bird bath off of Etsy. It has like some faux water in it. I am going to take the lid off, I think, and stick it into this, and I'll come back and show you guys. I think it'll be really cute. Okay, just gonna stick it in, I think, like right here. It came with a pretty long base on it, and it was a little too long, but it was really easy to cut. There we go. I just kind of want to stick it in here, kind of like the fern is growing over it. Isn't that cute? So really, that's it. I mean, it was really pretty easy once you have all the materials and supplies. And this one is really my favorite. And I'll kind of keep you guys posted on how these are doing. But I think even this one is kind of neat. Now, if you wanted to, you could really do like different layers of things in a jar, especially in something that's taller, so that you could see distinct layerings of the items in your terrarium. But I just think it's kind of cool to be able to kind of see the plants growing in the dirt. So it's really personal preference. Thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.